And we're live.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm so happy to have you on.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Welcome, Kristen, to the How I Became podcast today. I am so excited to have you on the other side of the screen, an esteemed entrepreneur, a motivational force known for your groundbreaking strategies, both business and personal realms, with a career defined by vision, purpose, core values. You've earned global recognition, including accolades from the Entrepreneur magazine and the Franchise Journal. And notably, before reaching 40, you secured your spot on the top 40 under 40 on Canada's list, which is very cool. And of course, what brought me to you was that you are the CEO and founder of the 10 Spot, which is a trailblazing beauty bar chain. And your entire journey is just so celebrated, especially here in the Toronto community, as it is a Toronto-based business that I know has rapidly grown. And I'm very excited for you to share your journey, the pivotal moments, the invaluable lessons, and showcasing the resilience and the relentless pursuit that you've pursued this entire journey to get to where you are today. So,
What an intro. Thank you.
well, it's
Gosh,
all,
I deserve all of those wonderful sentiments, but
you
that was
do.
fun hearing them. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming on today. And maybe we'll start there with the journey to get you to where you are today and how you started the 10 Spot a few years back.
Many moons ago now. It's like 17. I think it's going on 18 years in August now. So
Wow.
yeah, it's been a while. It's been my entire adult life, basically, because I was 24 when I started the 10 Spot. So I lived in New York City when I was younger, and I saw these nail bars, and they're really popular. I lived above one. And when I was back in Toronto, I felt like, what if I did this, but just not like the one that I lived above was kind of disgusting. So I thought, what if I did this, but I took the great things about this industry. So the fact that you can get an amazing service and you can, get all polished and pampered and look and feel more confident in yourself really is what it's about.
Yeah.
And what if I just married that with the high-end spa market, which is a little bit more about, like guest care and they had the higher price points. And so I was like, what if I just did that and
Totally.
took the middle of both of those markets, took the great stuff about the lower end salon market, took the great stuff about the higher end day spa, luxury spa market, and left out the parts that I wasn't interested in as a young 20-something person that, just wanted to be in and out and looking good and have more of a thing to do, more of a social spa experience. And then carve out a little niche in between those two categories and have impeccably executed services, have clinical cleanliness, also bring in a vibe that's a little bit more friendly and laid back and youthful and not as intimidating, and make it more of a social spa experience. So you could come with your gal pals, come with friends, come with your group of people, and maybe have a martini and a glass of wine, and listen to some great music and watch some great movies, and then get polished head to toe and waxed and all that stuff. And so that's what I did. I didn't know anything about the spa industry other than being a patron on occasion. And I didn't know anything about aesthetics. I didn't know anything about business. I didn't know anything about finance, marketing, any of the things that normally people should know before they're, diving headfirst into starting a business. But typically I find entrepreneurs don't, which is probably a good thing too, because you don't know how hard it is until you're, sort of right in it and having to deal with it. And started with that one location. It really took off. I think that the market was ready for this, and this little niche that I thought I was carving out ended up being not so niche. And it's really what most women want, is to get their monthly maintenance services done in a spot that, values their time as well as their experience, and the fact that you're paying money to do this, and you're really voting with your wallet and making sure that you're getting the value in terms of the experience as well as the outcome.
Yeah.
And then did a couple more locations, really bootstrapped, took the savings from that first location and then put it into the other locations. and then started franchising at about, I think we were 6 years in. And I realized this was something. I had 4 locations by then, and they were pretty popular. And I thought, what if I could give this business concept that was doing well to other women? And the other thing for me was that it was not just that the business concept was fun, my life was really fun. I was loving being my own boss, being an entrepreneur, not being tethered to somebody else's schedule, getting to live my life on my own terms, having that untapped earning potential that being an entrepreneur can give you. You know, I'm not going to somebody. I had a couple jobs. I had 3 of them prior to starting my business. 2 of them I was fired from, one of them being an unpaid internship. So I did not
want
like
to get into that
the corporate world. I did not like being told what to do. And I didn't like, asking somebody, I didn't like asking someone, can I have more money? It should be based off of your own merit and the work that you're going to put in. So I love that aspect of entrepreneurship, and I wanted to give that to other people. And then I wanted to grow the brand. And I thought this was a perfect way to do that, was through franchising.
So much to unpack there. But an incredible start to the story. And I'm going to try to keep my questions in order of what you just shared, but we'll get lost. So the first one that you started, you had an idea. You're like, I'm going to test this thing out. Where did you even start? Like, how did you choose the location, say Toronto versus you were living in New York? Location within Toronto? Like, how did all of that come to life?
Very serendipitously, I must say. So I was living in Toronto. So I had moved back from New York City by that time. I'd actually lived in Montreal after that, and then finally landed in Toronto. And I was working as a graphic designer, which I love fonts and colors. Oh my God, it's like my dream heaven is just to be dicking around on the computer. And Canva now, like, don't even get me started. It's like my favorite thing of life. And so I was working as a graphic designer, but the company got downsized. I was on the chopping block. I got fired on the Friday, and I decided to go to brainstorm with a friend of mine, be like, what am I going to do with my life? And I had always known that I was going to be an entrepreneur at some point, because my dad told me, you're going to be an entrepreneur. He's like, that's the best way. He didn't actually say that. He just said, it's the thing you're going to do. He was an entrepreneur, so he very much believed in this. And he felt like, just find something that you loved to do and then make it into a business, because you can make a business into anything. You love baking, make it into a business. You love cleaning people's teeth, love being a dentist. Well, like, be a dentist, but like have your own,
make a business,
your own practice. Yeah. And so I didn't realize it at the time. And I don't think he articulated it this way. I certainly didn't take it this way when I was 8 years old. But really what I found out later was this was the key to loving your life, having that freedom, having the thrill, having the control of being your own boss, of being an entrepreneur, is really, for me, like the fundamental base level thing, the biggest thing that I can do to impact how much I love my life, because it's a giant chunk of your life is working. And especially if you're going to spend that time working on something that's your baby, working on something that's going to benefit you, working on something that lights you up and that you're excited about, you really don't. I'm not going to say that it doesn't feel like you've ever worked a day in your life, but it's pretty damn close to it. There's, I can probably count on 2 hands the number of days I've hated in the last 17 years of, in my job, because the rest of it, I really, I'm obsessed with my life. I love my life. I love what I've gotten to create, and the freedom and the thrill and the earning potential that came through that. So I thought in that moment, well, after I cried a bit about getting fired again, I thought, what if I don't go look for another job that I'll probably end up not doing so well in, because I just have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and thought, what if I actually lived out my, did the thing, like thought of a business idea and went for it.
Right.
And did the plan A that I thought I was always going to do. Because in my mind, if it didn't work out,
Yeah.
I would be exactly in the same place that I was currently, which was unemployed,
Yeah.
probably with some
Right.
more debt. But as you know, I didn't like, I was a young person. So you kind of don't even think about that as much, or I didn't at the time. And so I thought, if that's my worst case scenario, is this thing doesn't work out and then I've got to go get a job and be stuck,
Totally.
in the corporate world, then why wouldn't I just go for my plan A right now if that's my plan B and my worst case scenario? So that I decided to go. I love a brainstorm sesh. So I asked my friend Craig, would he go do a little brainstorm sesh with me? And he said, yeah. And we decided to meet. He had recommended this little pie shop on Queen Street West. And I was pretty new to the city, so I hadn't actually been down in that neighborhood. I live more downtown. So when he suggested Queen Street, it was not what it is today. So I feel like everyone knows Queen Street. I mean, it was like in Vogue magazine's top 15 neighborhoods, back in the day. But it's but way back 17, 18 years ago, it was not what it is today. So
Right.
it was very up and coming. There were just a couple. There was a little hotel, a boutique hotel. The Drake Hotel had just opened up there, but it was brand new. There was a couple little cafes, like the one that I met Craig at. There was a little Japanese paper place that was adorable, and I ended up getting lost on my way down there and went too far down. So I actually ended up seeing more of the street than if I had just like beelined it and got there. I mean, there's no, Google Maps. So I was kind of just like looking at street numbers. And when I arrived, I walked in and I was like, Craigers, like, dude, I know what I'm doing. I mean, I half know what I'm doing. I'm going to have a store on Queen Street because this is the most adorable little street I have ever been on. I would love to just have a cute little storefront like these guys do, just where I can come in every morning and greet my staff and greet my customers, and it'll be so cute. And then, so I was like, part done, like we're halfway there.
We just have to eat pie now.
We just have to think of what I'm going to do in my cute little store. And then that's where the idea, we brainstorm a bunch of different things. And then that's where the idea for, hey, I lived above this beauty bar. And like that thing, when I was there morning, noon, night, because I lived above it and I have to walk up the flights. So I thought, what if I did that and just
you saw it was
did
always
it differently?
busy. And
I saw it was always busy. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I saw like morning, afternoon, night. It was like that thing was like printing money. And I thought, if it was doing this well, and it's disgusting, like it was carpeting. So it's imagine carpeting and like callus shavings and toenail clippings. Like it was an unsavory place.
Yeah.
But they did great services, and the health and the hygiene things were just not at the forefront of people's brains at that time anyway, to give them some credit. Like it wasn't even that it was people weren't in that headspace then. So yeah, that's what I did. I rode my little bike home after a little sesh. I was super excited, and then I knew what I wanted to do. I knew where I wanted it to do. I knew I didn't have money for it. So I had a little line of credit. It was for $35,000 that I was going to use towards going back to graphic design school in New York City. That was sort of my primary plan, or it was like a plan in the making, as I knew that I wanted to go back. So I had this line of credit that I was going to use. Not like that would have at all covered years of grad school in New York City. Financial wise, I wasn't as savvy as I maybe am now.
It was a nice dream.
It was a great dream. Glad that it didn't work out. Because it wouldn't have worked out. And so I knew that I needed money. I knew banks gave out money and that I would need to get a loan. And so I just went on the Royal Bank of Canada website and I looked up some of the loans that they had to offer. And then, of course, they say you need a business plan. And then there was a link to a business plan template and an example. And so I downloaded that example and then I just started to fill it out. And I was super excited. I ended up writing it all night long until 6 a.m. Skipped some financial parts of it because I just didn't know how to do that. And I was like, well, I'll be able to just tell them how great the idea is, and I'm sure they'll go for it. And so wrote that until 6 a.m. and then got a bit of sleep, and then rode my bike, dropped it off of my bankers. And by banker, I mean like the guy that started my RRSP the year before. And then I don't know what I did the rest of the day, probably slept again. And then I went out on my bike again and I went up and down Queen Street to go and try to find a space. And that day I knew that just from being on that, like really sort of, going up and down the street, I knew that I wanted to be on the south side of the street because that was the side that was sunny and most people were walking down that side. So then I honed in on that side and I started to just go in and out of every storefront and restaurant and say, hey, I'm going to start this, nail bar concept. Do you know of anybody that like has their space that's going to go up for lease? Are you maybe going to be leaving or going out of business soon and I could take over your space? I got a lot of no's and a lot of, who are you? You dumb 24-year-old twit. What are you even talking about? And finally one woman said, yeah, my landlord actually has a couple of buildings on the street, and the lingerie store I think is moving to another location, and I think their place is going to be up for rent soon. So I ran down there and it's like slammed open the door. Hey, are you leaving soon? And she was kind of rude and said like, well, you're just going to have to wait and see if a sign goes in the window. So I ran back to the other lady, said she was being a total bitch. Do you think that I can get your landlord's contact information? She's like, actually, I just saw him walk into the building next door because he owns the restaurant. So I was like, amazing, thank you. So I run into the restaurant, bust open the door, and I yell like, I need to talk to the owner. And I'm sure he's freaking out that, I'm an angry patron of his restaurant. But anyway, ended up connecting with him. And I was like, hey, I think I want to rent your space. From my uneducated assessment of how much square footage I need, I think this is going to be great. And
right, of course, you haven't like measured. You just like found the spot, and you're like, I'm going to make it work.
Didn't realize I needed to do that. Okay, I just thought this looks big enough to put some pedicures and manicures in it. Why would I even think that I'd need to, measure it out and see what distances, space, and legal requirements for hallway measurements. But and then we went in, we looked at it together. I got to go back in there and be like, found him, to the lady. Actually, I'm not even that. I'm not rude. I can't be, I talk a big game, but I actually,
in your head, you did.
In my head, I was sassy. And so then ended up renting the space. I signed the lease with that $35K. Wow. So I paid the first and last month's rent. It was $5,000 back in the day. I think it was even less, actually. Yeah, I know. Rents are not like that anymore. And then thank God ended up getting the loan a couple months later. Because I didn't realize it's a bad idea to sign a commercial lease without having money in the bank. Yeah. So so I did that, and then ended up finding a contractor, learning, where to find estheticians to get them hired, learning where to, get supplies and sort of things that I need to do services. So a lot of just asking people, finding, hey, I'm opening up a beauty bar. You sell beauty supplies. What things do you think I need? And working on initial orders with people. And like everyone, I find that when you ask people for help, they love giving help. They love showing their expertise and their knowledge. Yeah. They love passing that on. And so I've always just been a person that's like, hey, I don't know how to do this. Like, I don't know what that word means. I don't know how to, help me figure this out. Yeah, exactly. So that's
wild.
It was wild. It was so fun. It was a really fun little magical time for sure.
Looking back, are there things did it all just kind of like fall into place perfectly, or are there things that you wish went differently or that you would have changed? Because this sounds kind of almost too perfect.
It was very magical, but I very much believe that I think people have different, you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it like the universe or God or like even just energy. But I think if you are excited about something and it feels like the right thing and you go at it with enthusiasm and intensity and speed, that you will then you'll either hit a rope, like you'll hit a brick wall and be like, this isn't working, like time to shift, reverse and shift gears and do something. Or you'll blast through that and you'll just be given like, you'll pick up more momentum and more speed and sort of, so that's really what that time felt like. It wasn't that it wasn't a ton of work.
Yeah.
It was so much. It was long nights and early mornings and like just putting in massive amounts of energy and effort. But because I felt like I was on the right path, it was fueling me. So it was giving me more energy. It felt effortless because it was something that I was loving doing versus, hitting those roadblocks all the time. So it was, I would get on the phone with someone and just be excited telling them about this cool, awesome nail bar concept that I had that was going to be cheeky and funny. And I'm calling, the manicures quickies and, like all the dumb stuff that I had thought of that I was excited about. It was just like, spilling this out to people that, I'm meeting. And so then one guy's like, hey, you're probably going to need a contractor. And I was like, what does that word mean? He's like, it's the guy that, does the construction. I was like, oh, didn't know they had a name for that, but love it. Yes, I do need that. And he's like, my best friend from high school is a contractor, so I'll put you in touch with him. So I was like, great, I'd rather work with somebody that you trust and that you like. So I called him up and said, hey, I'm a friend of Mike's. I heard you do construction and I've rented a space. And I'm going to get some money soon, I think, hopefully. So I'd love if you could, build out my space for me. He's like, wonderful. Do you have your drawings and, do you have like your layout plans? And I was like, I don't.
What?
I guess that's something you do require. I thought maybe we could just, free. I just tell you what I want things and what I want them to look like. But I was like, good idea. I need that. And he's like, my sister does that. So I was like, great, give me your sister's name and number. And this would be perfect because then you're working with her and we're all working together. So it was really just this serendipitous, very synchronistic kind of things happening all the time. So yeah, that one was good. I've had other patches of life where, there's steeper learning curves for sure. But definitely that first location was a very magical fond time of mine.
I want to get into some of the days that you can count on just two hands, but before we do, the horrifying moments, because I think
not really.
Every entrepreneur has those, and it's about getting through those days. But before we get into that, so you have the 4, and then you decide to transition or to start franchising.
Yeah.
Why 4? Why franchising? Why was that the right move versus an alternative?
Yeah. So it was again, I did the one and that went really well. And I was like, okay, this is a thing. I think I can do another one of these, or I wanted to do another one. And so I built that one out at the other end of the city. So in Leslieville, across town in Toronto. And that one, there were pain points because I was wiser to, certain things, but not wise enough. So a great example is, oh God, it was terrible. I knew that I needed a designer. And so I wanted a really great design company to do it. And I ended up negotiating a rate with them for, I think it was like, I forget the exact number, so I'm going to butcher it, but basically they were speaking in dollar per square foot to design the space. Okay. And I thought they were talking total dollars. Oh. And it wasn't until getting that initial invoice, and we'd already, I was moving at this like clip speed where they'd already started to do stuff where I was like, oh my God, getting that first invoice and realizing that like the error was on, it was a miscommunication error, but I'll take accountability for it. And so it were just things like that, where there was some of these, things that just were not ideal. However, got through that, and same sort of thing. It was a bit of a slower, whereas initially that first location, we were in the right spot at the right time with the right offering. And we really gained this like huge cult following and notoriety right off the bat. In the Leslieville space, I wanted cheaper rent. And so I ended up being down a bit of an alleyway thinking, oh, it's like New York City. Like, you can be like, oh, you got to know where we are and go off a beaten path. And that's just not how this city typically works or didn't, I think that would have been like 16 years ago. And so we just ended up missing the mark in terms of just not picking the right real estate for what we needed. But I'm also a very big everything happens for a reason person. Mm-hmm. So it's funny now looking back where those things very much felt like mistakes and not great things to happen. Yeah. But now looking back, I know I've learned these lessons so that my franchise partners don't make those mistakes. And yeah. I know that like, hey, when like, let's check this contract and make sure that we're all talking about the same things. Let's make sure that when you find a space, you're not going to be like, you are not going to be off the beaten path. It is better to wait until your perfect space arises for you than it is to jump the gun and say that like, oh, well, I'm sure that it'll be up and coming soon enough, because that just, it's just not the right play for us at least. And so there's a lot of things where I recognize the value of right. those earlier learning lessons, that the learning lessons were done on me and not necessarily on our franchise partners, which is great. And so I built out that location. In the interim, I ended up meeting a boy, fell in love. I sold my house and we went to Hamilton, Ontario, had a baby there, got married, had a baby, and then decided that I wanted to do another location and that I would do it in my new city that I lived in. Mm-hmm. And so I also thought that at that time too, my then husband, we're not together anymore, but still love him to death dearly. And in fact, probably love him more now that we're divorced than I did when we were married. And I think he'd say the same thing for me. And so
that's a happy ending then.
Oh, totally. Oh yeah. I have a Cinderella divorce. And so he actually knew, he had a friend that was in franchising. And by this time, my ambition was to have 10 spots because, of course,
naturally,
10 spots, 10 of them. How could I not? And so he had a friend in franchising and said, hey, this is maybe instead of just bootstrapping and doing another location and then doing another location, this is a good concept. And this is something where, enough time is going to pass. Other entrants are going to come in and I won't be the leader in in terms of the growth numbers. Yeah. And it's very obvious, it's very expensive to build up the locations yourself. And so he's like, what if you thought about the world of franchising? And I didn't know anything about it. So we went out for a dinner with him and he told me all about it. And for me, it was this instantaneous, like, yes, this is the way I want to do this. I went into it thinking that this was just going to be about growth and faster growth and being able to dominate the market earlier. What I learned in that dinner with him was like, this was actually going to satisfy a need in me and a want in me that I was sort of struggling with for over the last, so by this time it was about, I think it was like 5 or 6 years in by the time I decided to do this, but it was lonely and daunting and scary doing it on my own. Yeah. And when you are an entrepreneur, and especially because I was so young, so I was like 24 when I started. So between the ages of 24 and 28, like this, I didn't have the same problems that my friends had. I'm like, am I making payroll? Am I, did I just overspend? Like, do I need to invest in, new equipment? Do I need, there were all of these different stresses that I was dealing with that I felt very alone in. And even having a husband, at that time, it's still the same thing. Like he has his job, he has his career. This is all on me. And I felt when I had that dinner with that guy, learning that like you actually have now, instead of it just being you doing this thing, you bring on these franchise partners that are building this business with you. You are all in the same industry. You are all in the same business. You are all trying to grow this thing and grow your individual locations and have them be as great as possible while expanding the brand and having it grow for everybody, and everybody benefits for this, and your incentive, structures are all aligned. And for me, I was like, this feels amazing. This is what I want to do. I want to grow the brand. I want to not be alone. And I also want to be able to offer other people, other women, this wonderful world of entrepreneurship. And also this business model that this was not an intentional thing. This was one of those like, wow, this ends up being great, is that the business model is very conducive to a work-life balance. So by this time I had a baby, and that little dude came with me everywhere. He came to, site visits with me. I brought him to the office, and I was able to do this because it was A, my own business, and B, the industry that we're in you open at 10 a.m. because that's when people are coming in for their appointments. It wasn't that I had to be there, other businesses that I could have gone in. Like I could have opened up, a pizza joint and be like, okay, I got to be there till 3 a.m. because I'm serving drunk kids, pizza. Or I could have done a cafe and bakery where I've got to be up and out of the house by 4 a.m. because I want to make sure that I've got my fresh baked croissants and biscuits for my, customers that are coming in at 6, 7, 8 a.m. So it's something where I realized this actual, this beauty bar thing that I've built is a great, it's a great business model for women and women that want to have it all, because it's not just about just your career. And it's not just, for me, it's not just about just my career. My life is not just about just my kid, my, career. My life is not just about my husband. It's about, and not just about all about me. It's all of it. I need all of those things to be feeling fulfilled in. And that I want a great career. I want a great business. I want to be a great wife. I want to be a great mom. I want to have my bucket first be filled up so that I can give to other people. So I've just found that it's been good for that.
That it's so special to hear you say that, and that as an entrepreneur, you've built something that allows you to have a bit of that work-life balance or balance, whatever you want to call it. And even when I heard you on some previous podcasts, and your energy and enthusiasm is just what really pulled me in. And I think that must completely get dispersed through the company culture. And that seems like what you're nurturing at the 10 spot. So I'm curious how, in your own life, clearly your personality is your personality and you're bubbly and whatnot, but how is it important for you to pull that through to the franchisees and the staff and everything, in terms of thinking about bringing your baby to the office and meeting people? Is that part of the culture that you want to empower these other women who are running their businesses to do the same? Or how does that translate?
Yeah. So I would say that one of the very best things I ever did as both a CEO and then also bringing this same thing into my life was that we were at a point in the business where I think it was about 2012, something like that. So I had the business for a while. We also had a bunch of franchise locations, and we were getting to a point where finally we weren't reactive, because that's the first phase of business usually. It's almost like you get to do these phases of business from being reactive to being proactive to finally getting to be strategic.
Yeah.
Only through earning that, because it's all of business when you first start is going to be reactive. And then, once you're okay, I know what I'm doing, I can now foresee the issues that I'm going to run into so I can be more proactive. And then if you're lucky, then you get to be in this place where you're strategic. So you're really seeing a further distance out there. And we got to this place where I saw, okay, now I'm not just putting out these fires, and I'm not just, one step ahead of these things. I can actually see that we need to come up with a purpose and core values, and really define our vision, really set out what our goals are going to be, and make sure that we've got the right people in place to do that. And so I was able to be strategic about the direction that we wanted to go in, and the how we were going to get there. And so it was also too where we had a bunch of locations, and I knew that because we were still small enough that my beliefs and my personality and what I wanted the business to be, and what I started it out to be, and what it grew up into being, I really wanted that to be communicated through all the locations. And of course, it's a franchise. And so the thing that made us popular were these sort of fundamental things and the way that we ran the business. And that I knew that if we got to a certain size, that would be much harder to implement and control. And the way to do this in business is to come up with your purpose and come up with your core values and come up with your vision so that you are then able to communicate this not only to the locations that exist already and be like, hey, remember this feeling, that you had, and remember this, work ethic, like now I'm going to articulate all of that so that we all are on the same page. We're all using the same language. We know that this is what we're about. And then anybody new that we bring in, whether it's a new franchise partner, whether it's a new head office staff, whether it's new estheticians or guest coordinators, we're going to let them know this is the shit we care about. These are the behaviors that we want. And if you aren't into that, great. Like, we're just not for you. But if you are, like, come on board and you're going to love it here, because we are going to say we're about this stuff. And then we're actually going to really be about this stuff. And you can trust that we're going to own this, and we're going to fulfill on what we say that we're about. So we, actually, another shout out to my ex-husband. I was trying to think of the purpose statement, and I knew that it had to do around, I knew that our purpose was exactly what we were already living from like day one of what we had set out to do. And when I opened up the business, like what it was fulfilling, it was making people feel put together. And when you feel put together, you feel more confident. And when you feel confident, you do great things in your life. You love your life. Nobody that feels like a total dump truck and is just like, oh, I've been wearing sweat. Nothing wrong with sweatpants. I wear yoga pants probably 95% of the day. But like, when you feel like you're, on top of your game and on top of your, stuff, and that you feel like you're
like conquering it.
When you're conquering it, yeah. And I'm looking for a word, oh my God, I can't think of the word, sorry. But you feel integrity, self-integrity. When you feel like that you say you're going to do something and then you do it, that builds up your confidence. When you're looking put together and polished, that builds up your confidence. Those things really contribute to then what you're going to do with that. And for me, that's what it's always been about. Like, it started with my belief, and my belief is like, I want to live my best life ever. 10 spot jargony terms, which I owe to my, ex-husband, is like, you want to live your life at a 10. And I'm like, oh my God, like, how did this
that is
blinding flash of the obvious, like, yes, how did you sneak that 10 in there? And he's like, yeah, because you make people feel like a 10. And I'm like, oh, I need to pay this guy for copywriting. He should have like royalties on it. But so, and that was exactly it. It was such a great, again, felt like it was really meant to be, because of course we're sneaking in the 10 word there. But that's really what it was, is that it was that we were there to make people feel like a 10, not necessarily look like a 10. Because what people look like that, that's like, it's so subjective. But when you get your nails done, when you're, nobody even has to see it, but when my underarms are like all waxed and free and hairless, I actually have laser now, so like I don't even have to worry about it. But like, I feel great. And I feel great on the outside, and it makes me feel great on the inside. And so for us, it was when we make people feel like a 10, they then can, live their best lives ever. They can live their life at a 10. And so we rolled that out along with our core values. So what we exist to do is we exist to make everyone feel like a 10. So with every service that they come in, with every interaction, with every product recommendation, it's really with that aim in mind of making people feel awesome about themselves. And I think that when you have that as your, like, the base of what you're doing, of like why you're waking up and going to work, like you're not there just like scrubbing calluses and waxing vajayjay. Like, you're there making somebody feel great about themselves. And it's a totally different way to approach life. It's a totally different perspective. When we actually rolled out the core values and our new purpose and vision statement, I went to all the locations and I gave a presentation, and I was like, hey, there's a little analogy or an allegory of it. And there was a guy that there's 3 bricklayers and they're all laying bricks. And a guy goes up to the first one and he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, what does it look like I'm doing? Dum dum, I'm laying bricks. He's like, okay, goes up to the second guy and says, hey, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm building a wall. And then he's like, oh, interesting. And then goes up to the third guy and says, what are you doing? And he says, I'm building a cathedral. And to me, this is so, I love this. I don't know where it came from, whoever made this allegory or analogy up. I love it because it's exactly that. You're laying bricks, but it's not really what you're doing. Like if you know in your heart and your soul, like you are building a cathedral, you're doing something that is meaningful and important in life. This is all the difference.
It's such a true point. Like for me, having my eyebrows done, it's not just about having your eyebrows done. It's like now it's one less thing that I'm thinking about. I'm not like constantly, fixing them or whatever. It's like, okay, maybe that person is the physical thing they're doing is removing a few hairs, but like you are actually setting me up for that whole week to feel really confident in that presentation to then get that promotion or whatever it is.
Yeah. And it's also those like little moments of joy where you're like, you're fixing your rear view mirror and you like catch your brows and you're like, look at those. I look cute, or when you get your nails done and you're on your phone and you're tippy tapping away and you're just like, look at my nails. They look so pretty. It's like, it sounds dumb. It sounds like laying bricks, but at the same time, it's not. It's about like having little moments of joy, little aesthetic pleasures that, when I'm typing on my laptop, I just love looking down at my fingers and my rings look cuter on my thing because I love, the pretty color of my nails. And it's, again, sounds dumb, but it's actually, life is tricky and life can be hard. And so if you can just find moments of joy, moments of pleasure, moments of things that bring you, some happiness and make you feel more positive.
Yeah.
And more, more give you more energy and give you more joy. Like you'll spread that, you will spread that infectious little joy and infectious little thing. And you'll, maybe hold the door open for somebody because you're feeling a little pep in your step, or you
want them to see your nails as you open the door.
Yeah. Right. Or, or you'll take a moment to have a conversation with the barista instead of being, buried in your own thoughts of whatever it is. Like, I think that's really the really when it gets going, it just snowballs into, making somebody else's day better, maybe saying something that, triggers another thought in their head. That's like, oh, that's so funny that this person said this to me. I was just thinking about doing this thing. And then like, it's like these, it's like a little ripple effect of amazingness. So I like that our business gets to be sort of one of those starting points of those, cascades of creating, creating somebody's life to be better.
A bit better.
It's a cool thing I get to do for sure.
When I talk to, obviously through the podcast, I'm talking with a lot of entrepreneurs, and what I hear often is that having a co-founder makes a world of difference because you have someone that's just like in the trenches with you. So I know in the beginning you didn't, and I know like throughout you didn't, but having the franchisees, as you've said, it kind of helps build that up. So how do these people, they're not your co-founders, but you're stuck with them for hopefully a long time as they build out their...
That's the goal.
That's the goal. So how do you assess if this is someone that you want on your team for the long run? Is it like an interview process? Is it...
Oh yeah, for sure. So we like to think that we're not selling our franchise locations, that we're awarding them, because we really want to have somebody that's as excited about what we're doing as we are, and knowing that it's a business. Yes, it has to make you money. Yes, it has to, like this is your life. And so it's got to be something that you want to be doing. You want to be in this here with us. But this is why we have a process, just to answer your question. So if somebody is interested, they fill out a form, we get back to them. Your first session is with me. So I do a brand overview intro session because I want to make sure that this candidate likes me and likes what I'm about. Because like, if you don't like this is annoying. Like this is not, I would rather repel you.
Yeah.
So that we, I would rather repel you and have people be really attracted to me, to the team, So I make sure that all of our leadership actually does our franchise process. So I'm the first interview. I talk about our core values. I talk about why I'm in this. I talk about, I talk about our purpose. And so, if this is, to me, it's like, if you're just doing this as like an investment, this isn't going to be for you, because this is a business. Like, you're an entrepreneur. if you go down this road with me, and we'll give you a car, like we'll give you a bright, shiny, orange McLaren that's sassy and fun and all the bells and whistles, and it looks great, but you're the driver. And so you can stall it, you can crash it, you can, take it on the Autobahn superhighway of life and, kick ass and take names with it and win all the races. But it's still it's a business. And so that is going to be up to our franchise partners. And so I want to set that expectation up front. And especially, things have changed since COVID, because costs are higher, and labor is it's also too, just generation wise, like it's a different mentality out there, and it has to be about creating value for your employees, creating value for your community, it's a neighborhood beauty bar, so you've got to want to be that face of the business. And so I make sure that that's very clear. And then we have our COO and president does the operations deck. So you learn all about how we get you from knowing nothing about the industry, knowing nothing about running a 10 spot, knowing nothing about, running a beauty bar, to being, fully comfortable, open and operational, and what that process looks like, as well as what our ongoing support is like. And then my brand officer does the marketing deck. So you learn all about our marketing programs, all about the local, all about the national stuff. And then there's a couple more steps, in between there, just to make sure that they're a fit for us. And it's a very, quid pro quo kind of thing. And then if we find that we're both like on fire and like, yes, let's do this, and yes, we like the market that you're in, then like all systems go. Let's do this. Let's sign an agreement, pop the champagne, and let's start looking for your space.
That's incredible. What a process. How many franchise do you have, or how many 10 spots, I guess, in total do you have today?
So there's 45 that are open and operational all across Canada. And then we've got a couple in the United States.
Wow.
And then in franchising, it's funny because we then have a bunch of additional franchise agreements that are signed. So I think it's somewhere in the realm, like the total would be like 75, but people will get a bunch up front. So like our Minnesota franchise partners, they have 2 locations. They're looking for their third, but they actually own all of Minnesota. So they have an agreement to do 8 of them. But it's on a schedule, right? So it's not like open all 8 in year 1. It's impossible.
Of course.
But it's, open one within this time frame, and then we work together with our partners till they get all the ones that they want open.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So big growth in the US coming with the
big growth. Yeah. And that's really what our focus is on today for the brand, is just filling out the rest of Canada and just making sure that we've got, we're servicing all the markets we need to be servicing in Canada.
Right.
And then focusing our attention on the US, because it's such a, it's, the US is big, and we're already there, and the potential there to really have an impact, and see is really fun. Actually, oh my gosh, my ex, I was like, I need a new vision statement, because it was just to be like the biggest and best beauty bar in the business. And so I called him and I was like, I need, like, it's something like this. And he's like, what about, what was the line? Because I'm perfecting it, but it's, he's like, what about growing the beauty of your impact, one community and one, beauty bar at a time? And it's like, oh my God, how are you so good at this? You've managed to weave in beauty with like impact, and the beauty of our impact, and using it in a different way. I was like, you're brilliant at this. Like, quit your day job and
you're hired.
You're hired full time.
That's so funny. Okay, we're coming to our last 2 questions. So the second last question, as you've kind of the majority of your career has been as an entrepreneur and as a founder. So I'm curious, what are some myths that you've heard? Maybe it's from the franchises, or maybe it's just from other entrepreneurs that you've met along the journey. What are some of the myths that you've heard that just aren't true as a founder, or as a franchise owner?
I would say it maybe isn't a myth for specifically founders or franchises, but I think for a woman potentially, again, this is not, I'm always like, you have to be so careful, but like my spirit, what I have seen is that it's like, oh, having it all is bullshit, that it's impossible. And you have to just, you can't actually do it. And you're just going to end up being like run ragged and exhausted and tired and whatever. And I think that can totally be a true statement. And I've had periods of that. And I've had, I've had a period in my life where it very much felt like that. But I think that, and so what I'm really actually extra passionate about right now is that concept of taking life, and instead of being reactive and instead of just being proactive, to actually get very strategic about life. And I think that it's sort of the same thing that a successful company needs to do in order to really sort of scale their success and scale their growth, is they have to get strategic. They have to know their purpose. They have to know their values. They have to set goals that align with what they actually want. And they have to know that this is what I want. And then they have to say, I can't do the other stuff. I've got to say no to the other things. But it doesn't matter that I'm saying no to those things, because what I really care about for the future, instead of just what I care about right now, what I care about for the future is like these things. And then I have the behavior sets in terms of my core values in order to keep me aligned and on track with those things. And it's that the commitment and the prioritization of it, and then that sort of like structure of accountability, that it seems like that is so like, and the discipline to do it. And it feels like, oh, discipline means it's so structured and rigid, but actually discipline is the freedom that gets you to that freedom.
Yeah.
And so I find that what I'm really interested in, and what I'm actually building a course around, is exactly that, is like building a life that is strategic, that is aligned with what you really want, and that you can then have it all. Because if you know what you want is, and what I want is, I want to have my best life ever. I want to live my life out of 10. And to me, out of 10 isn't like, I want to free dive, base jump in a squirrel suit off of a thing. That's not it. But my life out of 10 is like, I want to be a great wife. Like, I want to have a best friend, connected, awesome, sassy, fun relationship with my husband. I think that, we are born alone and we will die alone. And if you can be another person's person in life and make that not make them feel alone, and make them feel like, I got you, we are in this together, like we are each other's life hacks. You're going to make me better, I'm going to make you better, I'm going to give you value, you're going to give me value. And at the same time as me creating value for you, I'm getting the high of, doing stuff because, making people feel great makes me feel great. And so I think that's a huge priority for me. I want to build a great business. I want it to be successful. I want my partners to be successful. I want to have a successful life. I want to be able to, live on a sailboat one day. I want our guests to know, to feel like if the 10 spot went away, it would really freaking suck. Like that to me is that thing of like, and I have businesses like this. Like if this business didn't exist, or if, this doctor that I have, I couldn't go to them anymore, or that esthetician, I couldn't get my sleep, like it would impact me in not a great way. And I think that is exciting, to think that we are that place for a lot of our guests, and that we are that place for our estheticians, because they're, especially with estheticians, they go to school to do this set of services, and they can do that set of services at a crap place, they can do it at a great place. Like they get their pick of the litter. And so for them to choose to do it at the 10 spot means that we are valuing what they do, because they go to school for a long time, they train for a long time, they have very specialized knowledge in the skin and nail health and foot health, and all of, they have this expertise that nobody else really has.
Right.
They're not like, for people to know your skin, you've got a dermatologist, but unless you have a skin condition that's like really causing you upset, and then you're going to go to your doctor, he's going to try to solve it, and then you go to like get a specialist, like nobody else knows skin like estheticians do. And they have that value. And so for me, I want to do a great job in my career, and I want to, fulfill on the stuff I'm working towards. And of course I want to be a great mom. I want to like show my kid, this is what life can be like. And this is, you can have a fun life and be that role model and, sort of set those guidelines. So for me, I think that it's this, we've gotten into this habit of like, we need to be run ragged. We need to not be filled with energy. And I think that if you're strategic and you're doing the things that align with what you really want, you get fed energy. And that energy is what, helps you get all the stuff done that, you
Totally.
need to get done in life to make yourself have a great time at this little weird ride that nobody really knows what the hell we're here for.
Totally. I love it. And I think this nicely leads into the last question, which is, as you know, the podcast is called How I Became, and every guest names their own episode. So How
Oh
I
God,
Became, fill in
pressure
the
on.
blank. Yeah. So thinking about your
Can we just do
journey
like
and
a
your
working
story,
title so that like I can change it
you
if
could
we need
update it.
to?
You could,
Okay, yeah, exactly.
but how Kristen became, fill in the blank.
It's definitely like how I became the gal person, but like just how I became someone that lives their life at a 10, that became,
Oh, I like that.
someone obsessed with their life. But yes, life at a 10 is definitely
Life at a
what I'm
10.
about. So how it works with the sentence of how I became,
I'll
workshop
massage
that
it.
one, but
Maybe
definitely.
we'll send it to your ex-husband and he'll like make the perfect title for us.
Brady, we need you. Yeah, exactly.
I love it. Okay, well, Kristen, thank you so much for coming on. I had so much fun chatting with you. My cheeks hurt from smiling and laughing. So I really appreciate your time today.
Awesome. No, I loved it. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that that you're making this podcast and that you're inspiring people. It's what you do matters. So thank you for doing it.
Thank you.